What if I told you the first architectural giants in human history weren't kings, pharaohs, or emperors? They were farmers. 7,000 years ago, long before the pyramids of Egypt or the ziggurats of Mesopotamia, a mysterious culture in Europe was building the largest structures the world had ever seen. Massive wooden longhouses, stretching 160 feet across the landscape. Not temples, not tombs, but homes for entire families, animals, tools, and dreams. So who were they? Why did they build so big? And why did their peaceful world end in blood? This is the forgotten story of the linear pottery culture and the rise and violent fall of the very first builders of Europe. These were the longhouses, monumental wooden halls, some as long as 50 meters, that housed not just families, but entire economies. Built in fertile valleys stretching from the Carpathians to France, these homes were the heart of their society. They weren't just shelters. They were the engine of a civilization. Constructed with thick timber posts, wooden planks, and walls made of clay and branches, these longhouses revealed an advanced level of engineering. The people who lived in them farmed, stored grain, raised livestock, made tools, and even organized their communities inside these structures. The design and function of these buildings were unlike anything seen before in Europe. So, what drove this society to create such massive homes? What do these longhouses tell us about their lives, their beliefs, and their downfall? And why did this civilization vanish so violently and suddenly? To understand, we have to go back to where it all began. After 7,000 BC, the first Neolithic farmers from Anatolia began migrating into Europe. Some followed the Mediterranean coast, while others traveled through the Balkans into Central Europe. These farming communities slowly spread, reaching what is now Western Hungary. Here, a unique society took shape. By 5,500 BC, this new group began doing things differently. They developed new crops that could thrive in colder northern climates. They abandoned older traditions like chickpea farming and introduced new ones more suited for the land they occupied. And then came the longhouses. These new structures defined their culture, so much so that archaeologists now call them the Linear Pottery Culture because of the distinctive lines carved into their pottery. But it's their buildings, not their pots, that truly set them apart. From Hungary, this culture spread rapidly. First, into Slovakia, Austria, and Germany, then into France and Poland. Within just a few generations, their influence spanned thousands of kilometers. By 5300 BC, their longhouses dotted landscapes from Normandy to Ukraine. And everywhere they went, they built big. The largest settlements had up to 50 longhouses, possibly supporting 400 people. Some communities had only 1 or 2 buildings, suggesting a smaller family-based life. But the pattern was clear. The longhouse was the foundation of everything. Each one had a consistent width, about 5.5 to 7 meters, but their lengths varied. The smallest were 10 meters long. The biggest stretched up to 50 meters. These weren't temporary homes. They were built to last, often standing for decades. Inside, the layout was smart and organized. These were multifunctional spaces, home to entire extended families. Some houses may have even had second floors. Daily life was centered inside, from tool making and food preparation to sleeping and socializing. Gender roles were clear. Men worked on tools and cleared land with stone axes. Women made pottery and processed grain into flour. This is confirmed by what archaeologists found in graves. Men buried with axes and tools, women with pottery and ornaments. And socially, not everyone was equal. In one valley in northwest France, researchers found a clear pattern. The biggest houses raised cattle and grain, indicating wealth. Medium-sized houses did both farming and hunting. But the smallest homes focused mostly on hunting wild animals and making hides, likely the poorest of the community. A hierarchy was forming, not just between individuals, but between entire households. When these Neolithic farmers entered Europe, they weren't alone. Europe was already home to hunter-gatherer groups, called Western hunter-gatherers by scientists. These weren't large societies, but they lived along rivers and coasts, fishing, hunting, and gathering wild plants. After about 500 years of success, the cracks began to show. Around 5100 BC, a combination of problems began to surface. The climate may have cooled, soils may have been overused, populations were getting larger, and tensions began to rise. Suddenly, violence erupted. Archaeologists have found gruesome evidence of large-scale massacres. Mass graves filled with bodies, men, women, and children, often killed with arrows, clubs, or axes. In some cases, women and girls are missing from the graves. They weren't killed. They were taken, abducted. These were not just small battles. Entire settlements were wiped out. Tribal warfare, cattle raids, blood feuds, all seem to have played a role. By 5000 BC, it was over. The longhouses were abandoned, the once thriving villages disappeared, and the linear pottery culture vanished from history. But they didn't leave nothing behind. Their architectural ideas lived on. In the east, new cultures like the Cucuteni Tripilia emerged, building even bigger settlements with thousands of longhouses. In the north, hunter-gatherer groups reasserted themselves, even replacing some LBK male bloodlines. The LBK longhouses stand today as a forgotten chapter in our story, a time when farming, architecture, and social complexity all came together in a way the world had never seen. And so ends the story of Europe's first great builders, a forgotten civilization that rose with innovation and fell in fire. The longhouses of the linear pottery culture weren't just shelters. They were power, identity, and the foundations of everything we now call home. But what came after their fall? What new cultures rose from the ashes? And how did their legacy echo across centuries of human history? If you're curious to explore those answers, from the Tripilia mega-settlements to the mystery of Neolithic Ireland, make sure to subscribe, turn on the bell, and join us on this journey through the ancient world. Thanks for watching.